actually. Anti-Semitism in the UK has hit an all-time high last year in what's been described as an explosion of hatred following the October the 7th attacks.
The figures published in a brand new report show over 4,000 instances of anti-Jewish hate, a 589% increase from 2022.
Yes, the Community Security Trust, which is a group that monitors anti-Jewish abuse and attacks, said this was a watershed moment for anti-Semitism in the UK. What exactly does that mean? Should we speak to the UK Government Advisor on Anti-Semitism, Lord John Mann? For those who have been following this, they will see these numbers, 589%, and not actually be shocked, but not surprised. Tell us why, in your view, you think the number of incidents has increased so dramatically.
Well, these numbers are people, of course. This is each and every one is something that's happened to an individual person. And the figures are very carefully put together. There's no exaggeration. So, for example, if you get a pile on the internet of anti-Semitic abuse, that's just logged as one incident, not as thousands. So these figures are incredibly worrying. And the last 3 months after October the 7th of last year, more incidents in that period than in any year in recorded history before. It's a phenomenal explosion. It's obviously a direct link to what's going on in Israel and Gaza. And there's an underlying prejudice and hatred there that's exploding all over the place. And you know what's really happening? Individual Jewish people are being targeted in the workplace, at school, in universities, in their social settings, and the community is just bombarded and battered by this. And people keep saying to me in the Jewish community, can't they just leave us alone? Can't we just be allowed to get on with our lives? Well, the answer is, we wish that were the case, but it's not. And this is a huge problem across our country and our society. And by the way, we're one country amongst many. There's not a bigger problem in Britain than other countries. This is happening all over the world.
Lord Mann, you used the words underlying. Is it your view that this is sort of something nascent that has always been there, just sort of below the surface, and it's only moments like these when you have sort of flashpoints in the news media, particularly over Israel and Palestine and the conflict in Gaza, that nascent level of anti-Semitism comes to the fore?
Correct. That's absolutely the case. But it doesn't come from nowhere. And the prejudice that's there is deep-rooted. And, we could spend a lot of time, and I do, analysing and writing about where it comes from and training people to understand it. And, I could give you a 2-hour training session at GB News for all your staff, and I think people will be shocked at what they don't know. And you're in the news industry. And it's not that people are unwilling to listen and hear, but they don't know. They don't think about it. We have a small Jewish community. It's a tiny community if you think about it. 350,000 people, and we're 60-odd million in this country. Many parts of the country, there's a negligible numbers of Jewish people, yet there's still anti-Semitism. And where they're found, Jewish people have been targeted. And I'm dealing, it's people I'm dealing with. And people don't like to come forward. People aren't rushing to you with stories about what happened to their child. Rationally so, because they want to protect their child or their grandson or their neighbour or their brother or their sister. So they're not rushing around telling everybody. They're quietly talking about it. And I get to hear more by that, often by private WhatsApp groups where someone tells me what's going on in their family. That's where I hear the worst stuff, not from the media where people have gone public. And what that means is that these figures represent something that's far more sinister, dangerous and damaging that is going on, because rationally people are busy protecting themselves rather than exposing themselves by saying, look what's happened at my child at school this week. And the politicians, as a collective, are not on top of this. There's lots of good words. There's almost a consensus in Parliament. Anti-Semitism is bad. We need to do more about it. Well, it's clearly not
But
effective.
on that point, and lastly, John, anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish hatred is not evenly spread across the entire country. How do we address anti-Semitism in a targeted way, rather than broad brush statements from government that anti-Semitism is wrong? And of course, there are fantastic charities that are doing a huge lot of work to promote tolerance, essentially. But what can be done to target communities where anti-Semitism really is a problem?
By prioritising resource, by being honest about it. You know, it is there. It's at the fore. It's easy to see. It's damaging people. It's particularly pernicious and damaging for children and younger adults. And society's kind of almost shrugging its shoulders. You know, we had that incredible incident in the Soho Theatre where the problem used to be the bystander. There's some anti-Semitism going on and everyone just stands and watches. Here in that theatre last week, direct anti-Semitism directed against a Jewish couple, and the audience joins in. So no longer bystanders washing their hands of it, but joining in. That's the state of events. That's a random theatre in London. That shows how bad it is. You know, things have got out of control. We need to pull them back in, and that's going to need a lot of hard work and a lot of honesty about how big and how widespread the problem of anti-Jewish hatred is in our country at the moment.
Well, Lord Mann, you speak very powerfully on it, and thank you for your time on Good Afternoon Britain this afternoon. My goodness. I'm reminded, actually, I went for a drink with a friend of mine not so long ago, and I noticed he wasn't wearing the necklace he normally wears.
Yeah.
Because it had a Star of David on.
Yeah.
It was a family necklace. He always wore it. This year he doesn't wear it because he's afraid of what people will say to him. Not even sort of physical harm, but just of abuse in the streets in our capital city.
Heard a story of a university student, a son of a friend, and he was, targeted in a kebab shop up in Nottingham, asked to say F Israel, curse Israel. He refused and was completely hounded for it. It's just that intimidation, isn't it?
Yeah.
They probably suspected that he was Jewish, so they asked him to say that. Really horrific. gbviews@gbnews.com.